Hello, everybody, and welcome to our podcast. This is the Welcome to Livingston podcast brought to you by the Putkela Group. My name is Don Putkela.
And I'm Angela Putkela.
And we are so excited today to welcome in Griswold's Holiday Lighting. So thank you so much for joining us, Clark and Jen.
Thank
you for having us.
So Clark and Jen Bradley, and you guys, it's actually Griswold's Home Services then, right?
Yeah, so it's technically Griswold's Exterior Services. Up through this year, it was two separate entities. One was more focused on exterior cleaning, house washing, roof washing, gutter cleaning, concrete, stuff like that. But we had a lot of overlap with the two. You know, they're both home service, and so ended up just making more sense to combine them. So there's now one company. Spring and summer is cleaning, and then winter is holiday lights.
Yeah,
Christmas lights.
For our time of year, I think that's the big focus of today here.
Yeah.
Wow, Christmas lighting. So in terms of Griswold's, I think I have an idea how you got the name, but why don't you talk us through?
Yeah, so we're going into our second year. So last summer, Jen and I were kind of bouncing around a couple different names, and she's like, "You know, it needs to be Griswold's, right?" And I'm like, "I know." I'm like, "Is that gonna be like too corny, too cheesy? Like, are people gonna like that?" She's like, "Oh no, people are gonna love it." You know?
Yeah, and then he's like, "No, I don't want to do it. It's too cheesy." He went out with some friends, and they all said, "You need to do Griswold." And he came back and he's like, "I'm going to do Griswold's."
Well, you know, your first name is Clark, so you got that right there. And then it's such a iconic movie, and to think about the lighting scene within the movie being such a huge part of it, it just speaks to not only what you do, but why you need professional help.
Yeah,
Yeah, really.
So true.
Exactly.
So true. Yeah.
So we've definitely kind of played it up. We found a baker locally, so after we do the installs, we'll leave a box of cookies, and there, you know, some of them are you serious, Clark? Or, you know, on the cookie, or it's like a picture of Chevy Chase's face, or Save the Neck for Me. So some of like the more iconic slogans
Sayings.
or parts of the movie.
Yeah.
And so it's fun. It really is. Like for me, it's such a great time of year to begin with, and then the fact that we can, you know, bring that Christmas joy to people it's awesome. It really is. Yeah, I love it.
And he does get calls from people saying, "Is your name really Clark?"
Yeah.
Like, nobody.
They ask me all the time. I'd say half of the estimates I go on, I show up, I'm like, "Hi, I'm Clark," and they're like, "Wait, seriously?"
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. Holiday lighting is so great and everything, but I know so many of us get frustrated with it, and it's so time-consuming and difficult. What makes you want to get into? That's what you're doing, is going out and doing that thing that's so, you know, hard for other people.
I had a lawn care business in high school and college.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of familiar with the home service industry. And, you know, I tell people it's like 80% of this, whether you're cutting grass or in the summer, in my case, washing a house or putting up Christmas lights, 80% of it is the same, right? You're talking to people, you're making sure you can solve a need or solve a problem, fulfill, you know, their concern or whatever it might be. Dealing with, you know, all of the transactional side of things, the follow-up, the correspondence, the text messages, emails, all translates. And so last summer, we have our co-working space, and we talked about that, you know, and it had gotten to the point where it was kind of sustainable, and the people who come up, they kind of know what they're doing. They check in, they get their coffee, they find their spot, they go to work. And so during the day, there's some downtime during the day because, you know, we get in, we kind of set things up, and then during the day, there's not a whole lot to do. And so Jen found this podcast and was like, "Hey, you kind of look bored. Like, you look like you need something to do."
He just kind of seemed like he needed something.
Yeah. And so it was this guy who started a power washing and a Christmas light business. And I was like, I could totally do that, you know? And it just so happens that next Friday, this was last summer, that next Friday, he was having a 3-day training in Indianapolis. And I was like, I'm in, let's do it. And so that went to that training and then just jumped in. That would have been, you know, last winter season. And then this past summer was our first year of washing, and then we're going into our second year of lights. So it was quick enough to learn, And there's definitely a market for it. So it was just good timing, good opportunity, so it's pretty wild how it all kind of came together.
Makes sense. And the seasonality seems like it would really lend itself well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice.
Shifting from one to the next.
Right.
Clark likes talking to people and interacting with people, and I felt like he needed something where he can go out and hang out and meet people and network a little bit.
A people person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For the lighting with the talking and such, talk us through, how does like the process work, consultation, that sort of thing for someone for the lighting?
Yeah, so I'll meet at somebody's house, like I did a couple this morning before coming here. I'll meet at someone's house, talk to them about what they're looking for in terms of, it could be just as simple as the roof line. It could be some bushes or trees or some wreaths or some stake lights maybe around their walkway. And then we'll just kind of have a dialogue about what they're looking for, what kind of color they might prefer, some of the pain points of, I don't want to get up on the ladder, or a lot of times it's wives will call in and they'll say, my husband had hip surgery, shoulder surgery, or fell off the ladder last year. He's not doing it, and I need your help. Or it's the husband's calling in, and I can like hear the defeat in their voice. They're like, my wife won't let me put up the lights anymore, so I need you. So it's usually one of those two things. Or sometimes people are just, they just don't have the time. They want their lights up, but they just don't have the time, and they're willing to pay for it, So it's definitely a unique offer, if you will. And I tell people, like, I realize that the way this is set up and the amount of work and us buying the lights and everything put together is maybe not the fit for every single person, because it's more of a premium offer. But to your question, so we start off with the in-person estimate. I go on as many in person as I can, and then work on some numbers and give them, some different choices as to what they're looking for. And then whatever that number ends up being, that includes the installation, includes maintenance through Christmas Eve. So within 48 hours, if a bulb burns out or something falls off, we come out and fix it. And that's all included in that number, whatever the estimate would have been. We do takedowns in January, and then we do year-round storage.
Okay. Now, is it their lights or is it your lights? Do you supply?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are most of the guys in my industry do what's considered almost like a leasing model. So I will buy the lights and maintain them, and then as bulbs burn out, as we need to replace things, that's on me to replace. And that way, let's say you decide on a warm white pattern this year, but you want to switch to red, white, green next year, you're not stuck with those bulbs because we've bought them, as opposed to if you went to Home Depot or somewhere and bought all white, now you're stuck with buying a new color.
Right.
So it gives some latitude that way. Like, we have somebody this year who's doing blue and yellow because she's like, my boys are going to love the blue and yellow because of Michigan, right? They're really good. They may not be so good next year. I don't know. And she might want to do a different color. I told her you should do green and white, but it's not my house. So to each their own. And so, so then it's kind of an all-inclusive deal, right? So the idea is that you pay that one number, and then it's just everything's included. Everything's, removing that, any of those pain points, any of that hassle or issue, right? And it's just hands off for them. They can enjoy the lights. In year 2, it's 20% less of whatever that number is. So let's say they stay with the same exact design, 20% less because we've got the bulbs. And then for all of our reinstalls from last year, we did them all in October. So it gives us a chance to get a jump on the busy part of the season. And then we can generally just repurpose what we've already got.
That is awesome. That's awesome. And, back to the point of like when the husbands call and such, because it's interesting because like the house we had before, I remember one year I did all the peaks and everything.
Yeah.
So I got the extension ladder out, and while I was up there, I realized this is never going to happen again. Like, this is the one year you get lights on the peaks because we're not doing it.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't even get up there. Like I deliberately, it's ironic because I started a Christmas light company and I don't get up on the roof, right? Like I have, So I knew right from the start that I was going to have to bring people on that I joke with people. I said, they're younger, taller, and thinner than me, and they're willing to get up there, and use the right safety equipment. Of course, we're keeping them safe, but it's like, 30 feet in the air or on a gable peak, that's 30 feet up. And more power to him.
Right.
Yeah. This is the first year we've had peaks since he started the business. I'm like, we finally get them because we have people to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was always just putting stuff on our house at the ground level, wrap the columns and like the first story gutter line.
Right.
But that was it.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Same thing.
So maybe there's people out there listening that maybe that's what they're doing. But if ever you've dreamed of having the whole tamale, that's maybe a whole business case for hiring somebody, because then at least you get what you want.
Yeah.
Right. And I think getting the lights off is a big part too, because I don't know how many times I've broken bulbs because I'm like, okay, I can just pull this. Yeah. Right. Where you have someone coming in and this is their job and they're taking care of it and they're storing it. And, there's not that I'm going to untangle the lights again this year and figure out what's working and what isn't working. So there's a huge time benefit involved here as well.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So for us, the takedown is huge because unfortunately I got quite a few calls last year from other people who had their lights put up. They say, hey, I can't find my guy. He's MIA. He put my lights up and now I can't find him. So we were kind of helping some other people out in the area that had some other installers that couldn't follow through. And then for us, it's just a matter of, like you said, taking them down with a little more TLC than just ripping down the strands.
Right.
And then marking them effectively so we know, okay, this goes here, with the right color codings and stuff like that. So,
and during your takedown, it's nice because it's January, so it's like winter time when you're taking them down, and there's snow. Where sometimes when you're putting them up, there's not snow, so it's a little safer than doing it in the snow yourself.
What's one of the more extravagant displays that you've done? Like what's?
Yeah, so we had a house that just recently, actually, he's a fireman, and unfortunately, he's got terminal cancer. And he's like, I might not be here next year. We're going all out. And so still cut him a discount because he's, public service. He's a fireman for a long time. And so we ended up doing stake lights down his driveway on each side. So it's probably a 6-inch plastic stake that the big bulbs will stand straight up. So flanking down both sides of the driveway and around up his front walkway. We did about 4 25-foot trees. So wrap the trunk and then wrap the canopy. We did the roof line and then the peaks of the roof line. So not just the gutter and not just the gables, but the actual ridges along the top, which always looks really cool. And then we did a wreath over the garage door. So I have a 5-foot wreath. So it looks great. And he's like, my neighbors won't stop talking about it, and he's so excited. And he's a little ways out. So it was a little bit out in the country. So it's like pretty dark around his house. And then it's like, boom, this just, like this grizz. I mean, it was probably 500, 600 feet just for the stake lights and the house. And then you figure probably 300 to 400 feet per tree. So it was, it was a good amount.
Nice.
Just when you add it all together.
Right. And then figuring out how to plug all that stuff in. We're doing questions this morning thinking about this. And I turned to Angela, I go, how do you guys deal with the fact of I have one plug on the front of my house. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. Well, thankfully with the LEDs, there's only a few like this one, because it's such a low electrical load.
Right.
Like most outlets can take 7-8 amps of electricity. And these are, even on the big ones, they might be 3 or 4. So it's not, unless you've got a fridge or another heavy appliance tied into that same line, it's not even really we don't have to worry about it so much.
Okay.
But then it's, showing up at the house and especially with something like that, looking at all the pieces and figuring out where we're going to cut into an extension cord, where we're going to add lines to different areas to make it all kind of flow.
Right.
And then hopefully being able to take it out of the box next year and do it again.
Everything is sized and figured out already.
Yeah. So we learned that the hard way this year. We've doing some of our reinstalls and I'm looking and it's I use these little Velcro, almost like zip ties, but they have Velcro on them. And I would use green for the start and then black would be the ending line, so near the plug, and then run around and the black would be the end one. Well, for whatever reason on this one, I used like 3 different greens, and I'm like, oh. And then like we're trying to piece together like how this all started, and we're like, it took us like an hour to figure out this house was a good install, and I was like, okay, I need to get a better system for next year because clearly this didn't work, you know?
Right.
And so yeah, we're thinking either we just take pictures of the front of the house and then mark off the areas, you know, number 1, 2, 3, and then that corresponds to a different plug or whatever. I'll figure it out. So
yeah, right. No, that makes sense. And we know firsthand just how different each house can be.
Yeah.
You know, and each person and what their needs are.
Yeah.
It really makes a difference. I know that's one of our favorite questions to ask people of, you know, as we take them through houses of, well, where are we putting the Christmas tree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And people get all excited about that.
We've had a couple clients that's the first thing they need to look at in every house.
Really?
Like if there wasn't a good place for the Christmas tree.
Yeah, the house was out.
The house was out. And we had one that they had like a 12-foot Christmas tree.
Oh, wow.
So it was like we need,
big.
You know, we need a place for it.
Yes.
You know,
That's cool. What a great question to ask though,
that
because
is funny.
for me, it's like, that's the immediate feel of, okay, this is someplace I could call home and celebrate probably most people's favorite or
close to
most important holiday for some.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you can really paint that picture. That's great. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it really helps because in some cases, some people say, wow, maybe this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it definitely is a good visual.
It took
makes
a while for us to figure out for ours.
Right.
We didn't really have a spot.
Yeah.
it makes you realize how important the decorations are to people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they have those ones of, you know, this is, you know, you pull it out. This is the wreath that they always have, or these are the lights that they use and such. That it's a very personal experience for you to go in there and talk them through that, and maybe even to get them to have a vision for something that they've thought about, but they've never been able to accomplish themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I've tried to wrap a tree before. It just does not go over well.
He goes, as we drive through, he's like, oh, that tree.
Yeah.
Because the trees that they do are really cool. They like, you know, all the way up to the top. There's no stops. And it just almost looks like the trees are glowing at night. You can't even like see the branches or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as we drive through, he's like, oh, that tree. You know, now that he has an eye for.
Now with the trained eye. Now I know the ones that are, obviously the homeowner did it.
Yeah.
And then even the other ones where another Christmas light company did it. I'm like, you know, that does not look good.
Well, you'll see the one that you feel like they just stood at the ground and they threw stuff at the tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Or they got like some type of extension and it's kind of just trails off, or like they'll use one strand, you know, for around the garage, and then they double back to go up to their gutter, and it's just.
It's one of
to
his
me.
pet peeves
To me,
now.
it looks
Twitch.
Yeah, exactly. To me, it doesn't look so great, but
But
to each their
the
own.
worst part, it probably took a whole lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but that's where it's so nice that there's that resource. I think a lot of people don't even think about it. I think they think, oh, we have to do the lights because the lights have to get done. But to know that the service is out there, it's, you know, it's within reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you guys put them on timers or photo cells or?
Yeah, it's on a photo cell, so you could pick. Most people pick dusk to dawn.
Right.
She doesn't like ours on that late. So are you?
Because we added a lot of our lights. Because I'm like, well, we're the main house. We have to have lights.
Right.
So I can just keep adding extra. But it's a little bit bright when I'm trying to sleep, and I'm kind of like
I
the
joke with
neighbors
her.
I don't want.
I joke with her. I'm like, you want to add all this stuff, but you're like my worst paying customer. So
Right.
Free customer.
yeah,
Well,
free.
You know, that's really nice too, because I know with us, sometimes it's like all of a sudden it's 10 o'clock at night. It's like, no one turned on the lights tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, they usually, most people either do like a 4 or 6 hour timer, and it gets dark so early, so it's like 5 o'clock to 9 or 11 or whatever the cutoff might be,
Right.
which is nice. That way you don't have to think about it.
Makes a difference. Now, you had mentioned some challenges of, you know, some of those reduced from last year and getting in line, but what other challenges have you encountered?
So I went through a hiring process in the off season, starting in really like late mid-September. And so that was a lot just to process everybody, go through Indeed, put the ad out there, you know, and it's like a sales funnel, right? You got maybe 100 people to start, and it ends up with 2 or 3 people meeting you for coffee, you know, and it's like that much of a reduction. And even if it's somebody who's got all the right qualities that you're looking for, and then sometimes they just don't show up, and it's like, okay, you know, I mean, maybe it's like hey, after giving this some more thought, maybe this isn't the right fit, but it's like, no, they just don't show. I'm like, okay then,
Right.
Yeah.
But thankfully, got through that whole process. Have 3 guys right now working with me. Actually right now, thankfully they're putting some lights up for us right now. So, I think just building the team, learning as much as they're learning as newer installers. My one guy has a couple years of experience putting up lights and power washing, but my other 2 guys are newer. So as much as they're learning and I'm coaching them, I'm also learning. I mean, this is going in, it's been a little over a year. So it's like, I'm learning just as much as to how to be a good leader, how to build a company. And as I joked with you, like, she's the catch-all and the brains behind all of it, So like, I can go out and talk to people and go on the estimates. And that's kind of like where maybe my strengths will lie. But the guys that I interviewed, I had them take a disc test, and they're all generally more task, detail, system guys, because I'm not. So I need them to be, right? So I need them to follow a checklist, keep things organized, have an attention to detail, especially when you're looking at lights. It's like, oh, that one's out. You can't just be like, it's good enough, right?
Yeah,
it's got to be clean, it's got to look nice.
Right.
So just general day-to-day up and down of running a business, It's been fun, but it's I wouldn't go back to what I was doing. I was at Chase. I think I mentioned that to you before, and that was a good experience, a good learning experience. And it helps me now. There's a lot of things I took away from that helps me in the current role.
But small business owners, it's in your blood.
Yeah, and I joke with her, like, even the worst day at this is still better than my best day at the bank.
That's
because
right.
it's mine,
yours,
it's ours,
Right.
And there's something to be said with that. And it's not the right fit for everyone, I get that, but for me, it was just, I felt so constricted,
Yeah.
Got you.
It's an entrepreneurial spirit. A lot
Right.
of these small businesses that we have in,
Yeah.
that's definitely something they all have in common.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you said your employees that are installing the lights are also doing the power washing then as well, right?
Yeah, so I have 2 guys from over the summer. One of those guys is staying on, and then one of the new guys I hired is going to continue on with washing.
Cool.
And so we're also looking at a couple other things. That's what else she helps me with is I'm like, oh, what about this? What about this? Like, I'm looking at landscape lighting and permanent lighting. Like, there's lights, now the lighting industry has grown quite a bit. Like, there's permanent lights that you can put up that are all color changing, and you can control them with an app. And I'm like, ooh, like, that's I'm already kind of in that premium level, but that's like extra premium level. Like, hey, you want us to put them up once for the next 10 years, and then like we'll maintain them for you. That's a whole nother thing that I'm looking at now,
Right.
Because those have come a long way, which they're pretty slick.
No, that's very true. Because we see houses sometimes at night. Those houses that have those permanent lighting at night that's lighting up the front of the house.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's come, like you said, such a long way. And
nice.
it looks very nice.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people have that yet.
Right. Yeah. So that's like landscape lights that accent trees, that accent a nice, maybe a particular wall on the outside of the front of the house, or just the walkway, whatever it might be. And then in addition to that, there's permanent lighting that's like, you can change the colors, so it will go under the soffit on your peaks or under your gutter line. You
For
could,
every holiday.
orange and purple, and then change it, when Halloween's
Yeah.
done, and it's pretty wild. So
Wow.
Yeah, so
But
lots
that's-
of options.
that's what
Clark's
she
kind
helps
of
me
a
with is, she keeps me.
dreamer, and he calls me a pessimist sometimes, but I think it's more of a realist.
Yeah.
Like
Balance each
one
other
thing
out,
at a
right?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm more the detail-oriented
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Great. So
Awesome.
do you do a lot of the operations and kind of behind the scenes? or-
So I had an online business that I sold recently. So starting a new online business. So the online world is my favorite, like social media stuff and just everything online, like website building. And so I'm kind of everywhere with what I'm doing, and I'm kind of a little bit haphazard with his social media sometimes, and we actually were talking to Rob from here, and he's like, yeah, I'd love to hire you because sometimes my social media expert is not the best. And like Rob said, he's like, I would take her for free too. so I do I built the website and social media stuff and kind of just the operations a little bit, especially in the beginning, the bookkeeping. So yeah, all the behind the scenes.
Excellent.
Stuff.
Yeah, because working with your spouse, you know firsthand, it definitely is an adventure. It's exciting.
We
but it's rewarding too, though.
Areas to focus.
Yeah. We kind of have our own I mean, it's okay when we overlap because I feel like, we've been dating since high school, so it's like we've been a part of each other's life for longer than we haven't been at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we both know when it's like, okay, like, give me a little space, you're annoying me type thing. It's generally me to her, annoying her. And so we have our own little like areas that we kind of stick to, you know? And then so it's a pretty good compliment. Yeah. You know?
Nice. Well, I think with both of you guys being growth minded, I mean, that's the beauty of it because it allows you to keep growing together in all these great adventures that you're on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, at least so often you hear when people were together for so long and one of them just outgrows the other. But when you're both growing, then it just is.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Astounding journey.
That entrepreneur spirit, like I think we both kind of have it and love it. And so it works well. Right. You know, we support each other's dreams, but we also kind of regulate them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
And then your kids, do you find that they want to get involved and they want to help?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just going to bring that up. Yeah. So our daughter they had a career day or something?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. They had like a career dress up as your future profession day.
So our daughter went as an entrepreneur. And then my 9-year-old was a boss, is what he called it.
Yeah, he just wanted to be a boss. That's what he said.
Yeah. So, and then I joke with my oldest, because she's 12. So she's like, you know, a car is kind of on the midterm horizon for her. And I said, if you go to work somewhere, you know, just for a wage, I'll match you 1-to-1 if you save for a car. Right. So she puts $5,000 in, I'll put $5,000 in. But if she solves a need for something, and creates an idea and creates a business, I'll match her 3-to-1.
Wow.
Because I'm trying to encourage. And I heard that from, I think it was either like a Dave Ramsey or somebody in that world. I think it was Dave Ramsey. And he did that with his kids for their cars. And because it encouraged them, you know, she's artistic. So maybe she just creates some art or puts out some instructional videos on YouTube or something and tries to monetize that some way.
Yeah.
To get those creative uses flowing. You know,
excellent. But
that's awesome.
Get them in that frame of mind.
Yeah,
to help them realize.
Yes.
Yeah,
because they see it all the time with us and our businesses, and you know, just like they're not used to us working a 9-to-5, which it's kind of funny, but not, because sometimes it's annoying that they're like, oh, why aren't you home for this part? It's like, okay, we do have to work sometimes,
right?
Because they just think we're home.
Yeah.
But it is nice that they have only really grown up around us being business owners.
Right.
And not the 9-to-5.
Oh,
so it's
a whole different schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Angela likes to joke that we work any 80 hours a week we want.
Yeah, it's so true. You just move them around.
So
yes.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to shut it off. That is one that I told her that the other day. I said it's probably the only thing I miss, or I guess the only thing I miss about the bank was like, you worked when you worked, you walked out the door and came home and you weren't working, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, an occasional email from somebody, but generally it was like, I'll get to it tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really hard, especially because so much of everything I do is all through my phone. So everything's coming through via text, you know, or email through my phone. So it's constantly right there.
Right.
It's really hard to shut it off.
Yeah. And the boys do bulb for him. He pays them 10 cents a bulb if they
wow.
put the bulbs on.
So last year, Owen, my 9-year-old, his friend was in the car. We were driving somewhere, and I was like, Aiden, what does your dad do again? And he's like, oh, he's an engineer. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. And then Owen, my son, was like, my dad's a Christmas light bulber.
That's what he does.
So I just left it. I'm like, I'm not going to explain that's just like 5% of what I do, but, you know, it was really funny.
It's the exciting part, though, for him.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
He's been asking me. He's like, he wants to help again this year. And I've been having my crew do the bulbing before. We have a storage unit now, so it's like, they do it there before a job, you know, when necessary. And so he's like, I want to help now because he wants to like make some money. So
he made like almost $100 last year. He bulbed a lot.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He just keeps. Yep.
And then every third bulb, I'd have to go back and like tighten it a little more.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, so okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
He's learning something, so that's good.
Now, as we're winding down here, I do want to make mention of that power washing side. Is there anything else from the power washing stuff that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure the audience knows?
I think just I do know that over the course of the summer, there were probably, I mean, we did a good amount of jobs last year. I think we did altogether probably 140 either house cleanings, house washing, roof washing, concrete. But there were probably 8 to 10 or so where they're like, hey, my house is selling, in 4 days. Can you come out? It's sometimes we were able to, fortunately we had generally like a 2.5 week out, wait list, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there were some times where we could move some things around. But just from your perspective, from a listener standpoint, it's obvious that it's going to help with a resale, because if you've got, a whole side of your house that's green,
right,
not the nicest look, or we did quite a few roof washings for that. So there'll be some black streaks on the shingles. Some people just think that's part of your roof getting old. It's actually build up. It's actually growth. It's mold. Or then the obvious would be just moss that's building up on the roof, generally on the shadier side or the north side, if there's trees overhanging. So we did quite a bit of that. And then, of course, concrete, and we did gutter cleaning as well. And so, yeah, that was good. It was a good part of the season. Me personally, I love Christmas lights, so I don't get quite as excited about washing as I do for lights. But still, it's good. I mean, for people that, I'll follow up with them and say, hey, how'd the sale go? How's the house? They said, oh, thank you so much. We just sold it, sold it in, 4 days like everybody, right? But it's like that was good to see, like good to be a part of that, right? Be able to get in quick, get the roof clean, like all that stuff,
But what I would say to people listening out there, we've had so many clients that we've had them power wash or take care of stuff, and their first comment is, I wish I'd been doing this all along.
Yeah.
That they clean up their house to sell it, but they don't realize what they're losing by not living in that house with it clean that way.
To take care of it for their own benefit,
right.
Not just for the top dollar.
They're like, oh my God, this looks amazing. It's like, well, it always could have looked amazing. So, people should get their house power washed in September and then get their Christmas lights up in October.
There you go.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And it allows you to enjoy the season and enjoy your home, and to take pride as you're pulling through the door and you got that whole Christmas happy going on because you've got your Christmas lights and you didn't have to do a whole lot, or it's not the stress involved.
Yeah.
There's not a price you can put on it.
No, there's definitely not a price. I think the stress is the biggest thing. It's finding time to get out there. And like we were talking about before we started the podcast, so many people wait and then they're freezing.
Yes.
Getting up on a ladder. It's cold outside. The ladder's cold. Their hands are hurting. They're getting the stuff out. They're like, I don't have the clips. I'm going to go out and buy the clips. There's so much going into it. And then the clips that you had last year were up in the attic and they got brittle, and then you're trying to put them up and they're breaking. So there's so much that goes into it that you guys are able to come in, and it's a easy, stress-free, and then you get that enjoyment instead of, and I know I screwed up on that one, and I don't notice the overall house. What I notice is the point of the day that I gave up, and it's just it's up now.
Yes,
yeah.
So true.
Well, and that's the other value add there is you put the lights up and you feel great about it, and then it's like you're done, and then like 3 days go by and you look up and you're like, oh no, one of the bulbs is out.
Right.
It felt one of the peak, the clips on the peak fell down. Right. So now it's like you got to get back out, and it's a worse feeling when you've got to go fix something that you feel like that should have already been done. That's like, oh, I'm done with that task. Check the box, move on. But for me, it'd be like, oh, I got to get the ladder back out, do this again. So that's what we take that off your plate, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I've got an extension ladder, and that's the only thing it comes out for.
Yeah.
And I have to figure out, well, this house it's easier, but the old house I'm like, oh crap, I have to move stuff to get to the extension ladder.
Yes.
I
know.
Such a headache.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so if people are interested, if people want to hire you to do their Christmas lighting, then how do they contact you? Where do they get more information?
Yeah. Griswold's Exterior Services.com. There was a request for a quote, and then they could call the number on the website as well, or just fill out the quote request, and then I would follow up with them from there.
Great.
We're generally in I try to stay within a 30-minute radius of Brighton, but we've got some jobs that we went outside that. It's just kind of dependent on the schedule and some other things. So, but generally, 20, 30 miles from Brighton. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we appreciate you guys taking the time and meeting with us.
And thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Definitely.
Yeah, so if any of you guys are interested, please check them out online. Also, you guys are on Facebook as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a Facebook page. I got to be better about posting, yes.
Yep. So thank you guys all so much for listening. Please check out our podcast. You can find us anywhere that you're looking for podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Like us on Facebook and come back and check us out on some of our other episodes. So thank you so much for listening today, and welcome to Livingston.